In our presentation, we will be demonstrating our understanding of the production process and technology, social context and the genre of the well-known British sitcom Only Fools and Horses, created and written by John Trevelyan. Out of the 64 regular episodes, we'll be using examples from the first episode that aired on our televisions, called The Big Brother, with an original episode audience of 9.2 million. The British sitcom was originally broadcast on BBC One.
The use of multicamera originally developed during the birth of classical Hollywood cinema. Although this is the norm for filmmakers, it is still common for television to use both single and multicam, especially when creating dramas. Multicam sitcoms were introduced by Arnix and Fraun in 1951 on I Love Lucy. Sitcoms continued to use this method until 1990 because it was cheaper, allows a varied amounts of shots and angles, and was less time-consuming. Throughout Only Fools and Horses, Fairbanks' method of free camera shooting is used. I'm going to focus on the first episode. This episode starts in a studio setting. The use of multicam allows the audience to see a smooth flowing conversation between Del Boy and Rodney using three viewpoints, as shown in the diagram. Later on, a close-up shot of Del Boy drinking his granddad's brandy is used to enhance humour as his granddad is passed out in front of him. The change in shots allows the director, Ray Butt, to focus the audience's attention to Del Boy drinking the brandy. The smooth transition from this close-up to a wide shot showing all of the characters allows the audience to see the reaction and drives the narrative. To film a successful sitcom in the 1980s, actors had to be well established with an understanding of how to deal with live audiences' reactions. They would have to know, after 1 week of rehearsal, exactly where to stand in order to get the correct framing for the camera. Using the same example, Del Boy had to gauge the response of the live audience, making sure he didn't cut the laughter short. The audience laughing, then a pause, allows the actor time for the delivery of the script. It also prompted the audience at home to laugh. According to Richard Hewitt, on a multicam production, the script would have been effectively set in stone after the first day of rehearsal. This meant the cast of Only Fools and Horses would need to get their lines correct when filming, and not a lot of improvisation or changes. This is reinforced by the fact they are filming in front of a live audience, so there's no time for stopping and starting. In the 1980s, all on-location filming was done before they filmed in the studio. As the interior studio setup usually consisted of static cameras and with an audience, this meant more adventurous filming could be done on location. An example of this is the tracking dolly shot as shown on screen. An on-location shot I'm going to talk about is when Rodney had been tricked into taking place as council chairperson. As the previous chairperson leaves him alone, Rodney is seen in a mid-shot looking proud and laughing to himself. A zoom-out shot is used to enhance the humour. The zoom shot is not commonly used in sitcoms as they often consist of cuts between shots, but Ray Butt has used this to reinforce Rodney is alone and for comedic effect.
According to Samantha Lay, social realist texts are described as gritty and raw, offering a slice of life, a review of life as it really is. The aim of these texts is to draw attention to the everyday conditions of the working class and the poor. In this presentation, I'm going to discuss the extent of social realism within Only Fools and Horses, which was cited in Lay's article as a prime example, as well as the social context surrounding the programme's intended audience. The programme was first broadcast in 1981, 2 years after the election of Margaret Thatcher. At this time, many would agree with the suggestion of a strong working class divide across the country, blaming Thatcherism such as the reduction of powers amongst workers' unions for this hostility. But what stemmed from this divide was a sense of community within working class areas. The episode was originally scheduled for 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 8th of September, a time after all family members had returned from their day jobs and would often watch the television communally. What appealed to many was the way that they could relate to the working class characters in the sitcom, as well as the challenges they faced. Even settings such as the Trotter's flat in Nelson Mandela House were similar to the cramped apartments, tacky wallpaper and makeshift dining tables many working class families were faced with. In Jason Murugesu's article, he contemplates why the story of a working class family resonated with many immigrant families at the time. He states that Only Fools and Horses employed a cavalcade of characters which were true to their lives. Later in the article, he likens himself and many others to Del Boy, a man who didn't fit into the aspirational lifestyle of the 90s. Many working-class citizens could relate to these characteristics, his loyalty to both family and friends, as well as taking risks to provide a better future for their families. What Murugesu's article touches upon is the lack of racial representation within the sitcom, involving migrant working-class families. This was a common problem of many sitcoms in this era, suggesting that although many families related to the characters, they also felt underrepresented. This reduces the social realism factor involving Only Fools and Horses, as certain aspects of working-class life in 1980s Peckham weren't truly embodied. This is reinforced by Stuart Jeffrey's article for The Guardian, which states that Only Fools and Horses probably isn't a credible guide to 1980s Peckham. He claims that the sitcom made Peckham seem overwhelmingly white and British, which contrasts with the 2001 census results of a 37.6% black African and 15.5% black Caribbean population. An example of this would be the scene set inside the Nag's Head, which is seemingly lacking any representation of ethnic minorities. However, this could be explained by the attitudes towards ethnic minorities in 1980s Britain, as many social venues were still segregated and different racial groups chose to socialise separately. Despite the lack of representation for migrant working-class families who were very much at home in 1980s Peckham, it's important to point out that social realism is very much alive within Only Fools and Horses. Lay states that in sitcoms such as Only Fools, working-class characters and the pathos of their social situations were common and highly popular. This is reinforced by the extremely high viewing figures of 9.2 million, and Jason Murugesu, who was named after David Jason's character, boldly states that the relatable characters in the show made families such as his feel at home, something which no other British TV programme has managed to achieve.
Only Fools and Horses is a well-known British sitcom that was originally broadcast on BBC One from 1981 to Christmas Day 2003. A television sitcom format is centred on a fixed set of characters that appear in each episode according to scenes. In Only Fools and Horses, the narrative follows the misadventures of two streetwise South East London brothers, Del Boy and Rodney Trotter, who live in Peckham, scraping by selling dodgy goods, believing next year they'll be millionaires. The aim of the first episode is to introduce the main protagonists of the sitcom and the set of locations that will be frequently used throughout the series. The first episode quickly establishes the personalities of the main characters. Del Boy, a risk-taker who is aspiring to be a millionaire who will never give up. Rodney is Del Boy's younger brother who is easily influenced but tries to do the right things. The first episode has Del Boy trying to sell a batch of faulty briefcases to the unexpecting customers, and this dodgy dealing theme is a continuing storyline throughout Del Boy and Rodney's family lives. The first episode also introduces other characters, including Grandad and Trigger, with later episodes bringing other key characters including Uncle Albert, Raquel, Cassandra as the narrative develops. In the first episode, only two key sets are shown. The living room of the family flat is acting as the main set together with inside the local pub, the Nag's Head, where the main characters are regulars. However, this is a brief scene filmed on location with establishing shots that introduce us to the iconic yellow Reliant robbing car. At the time of broadcast, Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of the country, looking to inspire the working classes to the independence and capitalism. This British sitcom was like no other at the time, as it was focused on the working classes and reflected the mood of the country. Viewers were able to do this and have a connection with the narrative. Only Fools and Horses is a series as it is a different story every episode, the same characters and setting. Early series follow the usual convention of a British television sitcom, having a regular 30-minute episode. However, throughout the 1980s we saw an increased amount of serialisation in situation comedy, giving a continuous storylines, same characters and setting every episode. As a result, Series 6 and 7 had a running time of episodes decreasing to 50 minutes to accommodate the storylines and recognising the popularity of the show. The programme utilises a live studio audience in the production process. This enables the performers to judge timing, mood and effectiveness of the material. Also encourages domestic audiences to respond to mood, tone and pace. However, some location footage was filmed and later on played back to the studio audience, whose laughter would then be recorded and then edited to the footage for broadcast. When assessing this against Eaton's three narrative models for sitcoms, whilst the series very much centric around home and family, work aspects are also a significant part of the storylines, and therefore the series falls into the third model type. This is proven in the first episode by set locations, characters and narrative and production